Book of Heaven, Volume 27, January 2nd, 1930. Difference between acts and effects of the Divine Fiat. How many goods an act of forwarding it can produce. Example of the sun. My abandonment in the Fiat continues, and carrying on my round in its works, I was feeling all surrounded by them, and each of them was waiting for me to recognize them as works of my Creator, so as to bind ourselves together with inseparable bonds. It seemed to me that the divine will, with its light, flowed in all creation as our blood flows in the body, and so it also flowed in all the acts, words, steps, pains, and tears of Jesus. And I went in search of everything as my own things, to love them and recognize them as things that belong to me. But while I was doing this, my sweet Jesus told me,
"My daughter, one who lives in my divine will is in communication with all things created by us, because my will is of all and belongs to all. Since one is the will that dominates and operates, all things are to it like members to the body, whose head is God, who has such bond with all things, because our divine volition flows as prime act of life, that they are inseparable from Him. Only the human will, if it wants to operate on its own, without the union of ours, can break this beautiful union, this bond of inseparability among God, created things and creatures. Therefore, my divine will is the bearer to the creature of all our acts done in creation and in redemption. It is the revealer of our secrets. Since our will is one with the creature who lives in it, how can it hide? And I, my daughter, how bad I would feel if I did not render you aware of my tears, of my inmost pains, and of what I did while I was on earth. And in my sorrow I would say, not even the little daughter of my will knows everything I have done and suffered so as to receive the requital, even of her little repeated, I love you, and give her the gift of what belongs to me. Therefore each thing you know of me and you love as your own, I give to you as a gift. And making feast, I say, I have always something to give to my daughter, and she has always something to receive. Therefore we shall always be together, because we are occupied in the exchange we make, I in giving and she in receiving.
After this, I continued my round in all the good acts done from the beginning of the creation of all creatures, not excluding my first father Adam, so as to offer them in order to obtain the kingdom of the divine will upon earth. And my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me,
My daughter, there is not one good thing that does not come from my divine will. However, there is difference between acts and effects of it. Creation was an act of my fiat, and oh, how many beautiful things came out, heavens, suns, stars, air, which was to serve for the natural life of the creature. Sea, wind, everything was fullness and multiplicity of works. In fact, one act of my divine will is capable of filling everything and of doing everything. The creation of man was an act of it, and what did it not enclose in the small circumference of man? Intelligence, eyes, hearing, mouth, word, heart, and even our likeness, by which we made him the bearer of his Creator. How many prodigies does he not enclose? Not only this, but the whole creation was placed around him to serve him, as if a first act of our fiat done in creation wanted to serve the second act done in creating man. Another act of our divine will was the creation of the Immaculate Virgin. The prodigies operated in her were such and so great that heaven and earth were stupefied, so much so that she arrived at making the divine word descend upon earth, which formed another act of my fiat. And this was my incarnation. And you know how it was the bearer of all goods to the human family. All the rest of the goods that there have been in the midst of creatures, virtues, prayers, good works, miracles, are effects of my divine volition, which act according to the dispositions of creatures, and therefore are always limited, nor with that fullness as to fill heaven and earth. On the other hand, the acts of my divine fiat are independent of them, and therefore one can see the great difference between acts and effects. And this can be seen so very well also in the sun and among the effects it produces. The sun, as an act, is always fixed in its fullness of light, which, with majesty, fills the earth. Nor does it ever cease to give its light and its heat, while the effects of the sun, which can be said to depend on the dispositions of the earth, are inconstant. Now one sees the earth flowery with the variety of all colors. Now one sees it stripped and without beauty, as if the sun did not have the communicative virtue of always communicating its admirable effects to the earth. While it can be said that it is the earth's fault, the sun lacks nothing. What it was yesterday, it is today and will be. Now, when I see you go around also in the effects of my divine fiat, as though wanting to miss nothing, so as to enclose them in it and give it the homages, the love of the effects it produces, to ask it to come upon earth to reign, you dispose our will to form another act of it. In fact, you must know that the fiat voluntas tua on earth as it is in heaven will be another act of our supreme fiat. It will not be an effect, but an act, but with such magnificence that all will remain stupefied. Now you must know that man was created by us with this prodigy. He was to possess within himself our continuous act of divine will. By rejecting it, he lost the act and remained with the effects, because we knew that just as the earth cannot live without at least the effects that the sun produces, if it does not want to live in the fullness of its light and of its heat, so could man not live without at least the effects of our divine will, since he had rejected the life of it. Therefore, its kingdom will be nothing other than calling back the continuous act of our divine fiat operating in the creature. And this is the reason for my long speaking about it. It is nothing other than the beginning of the continuous act of my divine fiat, which never ends when it wants to operate in the creature, and is so manifold in the works, in the beauty, in the grace, and in the light, that its boundaries cannot be seen. Therefore, continue going around in everything that my divine fiat has done and produces, and never tire if you want to obtain a kingdom so holy.
Then he added,
My daughter, just as the effects are produced by my soul in one will, and they act according to the dispositions of the creature, so the acts of our divine will, independent of them, are produced by the unity of the single act of our divine fiat. So in us, the act is always one, because in us there is no progression of acts. And if to the creature it seems that now we do the creation, now the redemption, and now we want to form the kingdom of our divine will in the midst of creatures, it is the manifestation that we make to them of what our soul and one act possesses, such that while to them it seems that we do and issue many distinct acts, for us everything was enclosed in one single act. In the unity of our divine volition, which encloses one single act, nothing can escape it. It encloses everything, it does everything, it embraces everything, and it is always one single act. Therefore, both the effects that our fiat produces and the acts of it always start from the unity of our soul and one act.